Welcome back to In Focus Kentucky. I'm Mario Anderson. On today's episode, we're focusing on National Breast Cancer Awareness Month and how those in Kentucky are fighting this disease. State Representative Adia Wushner is a wife, mother, grandmother, businesswoman, and a nurse, and she's been a member of the Kentucky House of Representatives representing Boone County since 2005. Now, in 2006, Adia was diagnosed with breast cancer, but she did not let the cancer slow down her pace, and she joins me now to share her story. And thank you for joining us, and welcome back to In Focus Kentucky.
Thank you, Mario.
Let's talk about 2006, that year. How did you first learn that you were diagnosed with breast cancer?
Well, interesting enough, a lot of us are busy women, and I was actually doing a program for Friends and Family for a Cure for another woman who'd had breast cancer. My mother and her mother also had had breast cancer, and I was had a women's conference coming, and suddenly I remembered, gee, I haven't had a mammogram for a while. It was 18 months out, and that's really the story. I was behind, had my mammogram, and I think as soon as they took pause on those first films and said, we'd like to look again, we want you to come back, I knew it was in my family's history, and my gut just said, this isn't going to be good. So that's how I found out that year. That was right around this time. It's the month of October. We had breast cancer events going on, and that spawned me to get my own mammogram. Like I said, busy, running behind.
Now, when you did officially get that news, and obviously the family history, were you shocked? What was your reaction? What was going through your mind?
I think any woman or man who has a family history, you always hold that concern. You know it's there. You wonder if it's going to catch you someday. So it was always in the back of my mind, but it's a shock. When you hear your name, Adia, Debbie, whatever your name is, Kathy, but when you hear your name and the word cancer, your whole world just starts spinning. Your head starts spinning because you feel suddenly out of control, and as if something's controlling you, something that you can't see, that are cells that are somewhere in your body that have now invaded you, and they're suddenly controlling your life.
And for viewers who may not be familiar with your particular journey through this process, explain to them how it was and what you went through during this time.
Well, that first feeling of out of control, and I kept saying, once I have a plan, people would talk to me and say, once I have a plan, I'll be fine. And I think that's important for all women, to the day that I was diagnosed and met my team. I had a team, an oncologist, a surgeon, a reconstructive team already that that kind of came together and said, this is what we need to do. You have an aggressive form of cancer. When they, as they said, when they gave you the deck of cards for breast cancer, I'm triple negative. It was advanced, and making the decision on what that plan of action is going to be. I'm an old surgical nurse, so the first thing I was like, let's do surgery tomorrow. And as the surgery got dated and planned, I always think it was my mom from heaven looking down on me. I woke up and knew that I should do chemo. It was an option. It was more nuanced. They weren't doing chemo first. But in my gut, I knew that chemo first might be the best option. Called the surgeon. I said, I know we're planned for surgery in a couple days, and I've begged you, to do this quick. And I said, but what if we do the chemo first? You mentioned it. And once that plan was made, I knew that was the right plan for me. But it's frightening. It's scary. You know you're going to lose your hair. I was just with a woman and a friend on Tuesday night. She's had her first chemo. She says, I'm not anticipating my hair falling out. And I said, well, I had my friends come over and we had a hair cutting party. I put my hair in pigtails, as silly as it might sound. We cut them off. And I was trying to get them to shave my head before it all fell out because I'd already had 2 chemos. And finally, I took the shaver and cut it, zzz, and it was like, well, there it goes. But it's still difficult. We've never seen ourselves bald.
Well, and you had mentioned to me that you weren't just fighting and surviving breast cancer, but you were thriving. So talk about that and what that means.
We here, whatever, you join a world, you join a sorority and a fraternity and all cancer, mine is pink, has a color. But we often say about surviving, we call ourselves survivors. But it struck me that it wasn't just surviving. We're fighting, surviving, but then we're thriving. And that's what we do afterwards. We make it through sometimes the most horrific journey that we've ever been on. And I'm going to tell you that that journey was hard. It was difficult. I'm thankful for the prayers and the folks that were with me. those my colleagues in the General Assembly, everyone's life has been, whether you've had cancer or a family member, you've been touched by cancer. And but it was about thriving. What do we do afterwards? Surviving for me was how I felt. I just crawled across a battlefield and made it to the other side. But thriving was to try to put that behind me and to go on living for my children and grandchildren, and in my service to Kentucky for the children and the grandchildren of Kentucky.
Coming up after the break, you'll hear more from Adia Wishner's journey as a proud breast cancer survivor. We'll be right back.